Hello, Pastor Kevin here, and we're continuing our series on the spirituality of money. And this is from my doctoral research. And today we're going to be talking about what I came up with called the hard math. The hard math that is facing congregations, well, it's facing everyone, but I talk specifically about churches, congregations, faith groups, and ministries. So we'll take a look at what the hard math is. Let's share the screen. Here we go. So economics are working against us. I don't think this is news to anyone, but how? Wages among our congregational members are not keeping up with inflation. The power of a dollar is worth a lot less than it did 40 years ago. Membership and participation in worship are declining. Fewer people are coming to church, participating in our programming, just being part of our community. And the largest religious demographic in Canada, 65% are nuns or people with no religious affiliation. That came from Angus Reid about a month and a half ago. And we have rising overhead costs. Things are getting more expensive. It's more and more expensive to run a church. Fewer giving units are being asked to contribute more with a weaker dollar against higher overhead costs. A giving unit is a person or a family who contributes. It's the number that is attached to the envelope. So we have all this, you put it together, and it's a perfect storm for institutional collapse. Note that I don't say church collapse, I say institutional collapse. So what's come out of that is a conversation about how to reorganize ourselves as congregations, even within churches, congregations, faith communities, and ministries. A lot of the innovation has been happening. New partnerships, new alliances, new alignments have been emerging. This has sparked great creativity, both within the organizational structure and theologically. For example, the conversation has started on whether or not lay people can preside at Holy Communion. That's traditionally been the place of the pastor, the ordained clergy person. And so we're wondering, is this a movement towards a more lay-driven theological church model that the Spirit is guiding us to out of being under-resourced? And for those areas that have been underserved by clergy, are we now called to empower the right lay people to those positions of leadership? We already have lay people on our preaching roster, people who have been trained to preach, learn how to write and preach a sermon. And I think a lot more damage can happen from a sermon from the pulpit than from behind the table, because the words are already set. But now the conversation is being to empower more lay people to serve Holy Communion. And I think that's both a good thing and perhaps a bad thing. The good thing is that people can receive the sacrament more regularly, especially if there's not a pastor around whose job it is to serve the Holy Communion. So that's very much a good thing, because one of the concerns that I've had is remote areas not having access to the sacrament. The downside of that is to ensure good order. As clergy, we're trained to administer the sacraments in a certain way that maintains good order, at least it should. And that training needs to go into, and it will go into, training for lay people. But there is a challenge there about dilution of service, both in the preaching and in the sacrament, after professional clergy have left the scene. So circling back to the money issue, the question remains is what is driving theological innovation or church innovation? Is it creativity? Is it the Holy Spirit? Or is it money? Is it a combination of both? Is God speaking to us through money? Is God changing the church through money? That's kind of a question that I sort of explore in parts of my research. It's certainly questions that I ask, because those are important questions to contend, because we have to consider what is actually driving theological and church innovation in our church today. So then we come back to the basic spiritual question. What is God saying to us through money? What is God saying to you through money? And what is God saying to the church as a whole through money as we navigate these transitional and uncertain times?